Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Sober Life Podcast. I want to thank you for joining us, whether you're watching live right now. And please remember, if you're watching live, put your comments in. We can answer your questions and talk to you as well. But whether you're watching live or you're watching a rerun, we appreciate you tuning in. Make sure that you like the show, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our YouTube channel when you have time. We pop up all the time. It's hard to keep a schedule because tracking people down in recovery is a difficult thing because it's not like the old days where we know where we are. We're just laying in a corner somewhere. We are busy people doing many, many things. And this guy is no exception. I've known him for several years now and watched the miraculous change he's gone through and the different things that he's been doing. So this is my friend Brandon Hammer. Brandon, how are you, man?
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Scott. Really happy to be here. I'm doing great. I'm blessed. I feel amazing to have the opportunities that I have and, to be here and to share with you guys. Thank you for tuning in, guys.
Yeah. Tell me a little something about you. Right we're going to put this out here a couple times today, just so everybody knows. You're working with, or you're part owner, I guess, a JC Recovery Center, and the address is there, jcrecoverycenter.com, and the phone number 855-367-9131 if you want information. But that's where you are now. This is not what your life was going to be back when you were young.
Whoa. This was not the plan, Scott. It wasn't the plan, but it was God's plan, I believe. So here we are, and what a blessing it is. I have an incredible opportunity, to really get next to someone that's sick and suffering, families that are hurting, and I get to come alongside them and really invest in people. And people are the best, they're most worthy of coming alongside and supporting. The results are incredible. So yeah, JC Recovery Center has been the platform that I've had the opportunity to come into, and it wasn't the plan, like you said. My plan was to work in film and television. I did that for many years. My plan was really, to be successful, as the world would say. And, that changed for me. Everything that I chased in life, I never ended up being able to receive it. Yeah, I never ended up being able to obtain it. And the more I chased something, the further away it got. And,
right.
When it came to my own addiction, I felt like I was always trying to fill something. And it was just never able to be filled.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Do you come from a family of addicts, alcoholics? Is this something that you grew up in?
I did. It wasn't something that we grew up like saying, not in the beginning anyway, or not to my knowledge, that like we were a family of dysfunction or addicts or alcoholics. To me, it was our normal life.
So you were exposed to alcohol and drug use throughout your young life.
I was. It was a normal thing. And, the way that I guess people perceived it, because my family was successful in certain aspects, right? We weren't homeless. We weren't on the streets. We weren't under a bridge. So, alcohol and drugs were just a part of, our family component, our makeup, and what we did. We were social.
Which is almost a more dangerous thing to be exposed to, because at least if your family's going through really hard times and maybe destitute or home, you're looking and you're saying, well, this is a negative side. But you saw it, and you saw positive with this thing. So you never associated it with being a negative act.
I really didn't. I mean, something inside of me knew, that this wasn't right.
Right.
You know, for as long as I can remember, I mean, my mom, I mean, I adored her. She was like all I knew. But there was always a feeling of discontent in me because, my mom drank and used other substances. And, when I was younger, she had very successful businesses, and, but her relationships were a mess. So,
Okay. All right.
my mom was married 5 times throughout the course of her life. And there was a lot of abuse and a lot of things, which, you know, when that's all you're like, oh, well, no, this isn't abuse. This isn't dysfunction,
Mhm.
because that's what I was raised in. But I knew that my mom loved me. I knew that she did the best that she could. But like any addiction, as time goes on, it progresses, and when we're able to function to a certain degree, in the television film industry, some of that stuff's glorified sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's this line that they draw in the media,
Mhm.
where a successful businessman always has a glass of scotch in his office,
Right there.
and at the end of the day, they sit around and they go to the bar, they do this, and it becomes like, so that's part of success culture that we're
Culture.
shown, right?
Right. So I ended up trying to get away from the house and family and running from that at a younger age. And, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. At first I thought I wanted to help people and be in, fire rescue. And I went through the academy and I ended up then getting in a massive car accident. Okay. So back fresh out of high school, I ended up getting back surgery. That was 1999, 2000. Okay. The height of the pill epidemic down here with the pill mill.
So was this surgery like your big introduction into using yourself?
It was, when I was younger, I dabbled, and, I was a good student, and regardless of the trauma and the things that I experienced in childhood, I was very resilient and I pushed through. I definitely, looking back, self-medicated and, ran to something. I believe that what we run to when we're hurting or fearful is where our faith is. And I had no faith in as far as spirituality, because we didn't grow up with that in my home.
Right.
We didn't really talk about our feelings. We didn't really talk about anything that was going on the outside. So everything looked really nice. We had a beautiful home. My mom had a successful business, but what happened behind doors was something of a whole different story,
And
So,
like I said, it's almost the worst thing to be exposed to is to be able to really keep the appearances up on the outside,
it's true.
no matter what's going on the inside. And
It's true.
Karen is with us. She wants to give you a shout out. Hello, Brandon.
Oh, Karen.
And so she's actually watching from the office next door, which is awesome.
That is amazing. As time went on, I went to film school. After my back surgery, I was no longer able to work with the department. So that part of my career ended. And, I had dabbled in acting and theater and things when I was young. And I had this, I guess my escape was my creativity.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So I had this passion to kind of create like who I was and my surroundings. And I mean, man, I was that guy that could kind of blend in and be a chameleon, and, whatever it was, whatever groups, whatever room I walked into, I just was able to adapt to that, situation. The problem is I never really knew who I was.
Right.
So after the surgery, being put on medications, that's when I believe my addiction did take off. I mean, prior to that, I was able to take it or leave it. I took it more than I left it. Right? But
Right.
but I get to the point where all of a sudden I wasn't in control anymore. Or control, I believe, is a perception, and I believe that it's a delusion. right? Or an illusion. So, we get to the point where it's like, one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. And all of a sudden, my life just begins to spiral, and I look at that now as a blessing, right? Because all of that pain, was turned into power and purpose in my life. Unfortunately, I got sober in 2017. In January of 2017, I just celebrated 7 years of sobriety.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank
man.
you.
Congratulations.
And, at that time, I had distanced myself from people, places, and things, certain things in my life that were unhealthy for me.
Okay.
I learned to value myself, right? And protect my sobriety and myself. I have a beautiful wife and I have 3 beautiful children. And, I always said how much I love them, right?
Right.
But my action showed otherwise, and
Yeah.
I wasn't, and it wasn't that I didn't love my family, because I did. The issue was I didn't really know how to love myself.
That's right. And I like to explain to people, because people are like, well, with the things I did to my children and the other addicts do, or alcoholics do, that seem like it's anti-family. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like you actually hate them the way you treat them. It's not the fact that we do love them. We have no idea how to live inside that love and act on that love. It becomes almost like just a painful reminder of our shortcomings, that we can't love them the way they should be loved.
It's true.
But we do love them and we do care. So that's a difficult thing. And I know a lot of people with addiction struggle with that idea. How could I do that to my kids? How could I, you know what? If you could have done it differently, you would have.
That's right.
You were just stuck in that. It didn't mean you didn't love them, but you just didn't know how to live in love because you were too busy living in pain and fear and doubt and all the other things.
It's true. It overpowers it.
Yes.
And, the thing is like, I believe that my mother did the best that she could by me.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
And I believe that it's almost generational, because we're taught, we're taught how to love and parent and treat others and treat ourselves. And then we do it just the same. I always said, I don't want to end up like this. I'm not going to do the same thing,
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like that thing where it's like, well, wow, I did the same thing, and
I always love the people to say, if I could go back, I would do it all different. No, because you're still going to be you. And in that situation, we make the decisions based on who we are at that moment. And if you go back to that moment, you're going to be the person you were in that moment.
It's true.
So forget about all that stuff. Forget about Back to the Future. It doesn't work. It's not real. Marty McFly is a fantasy. Just make your today different. Don't worry about your yesterdays. Make your today different.
That. I love that, Scott. I love the fact that, like I always say, what we do today is directly going to affect our tomorrow. So it's not about, we're not a sum of our past mistakes, right? The choices and the things that we've done in the past have gotten us to the point that we are today. Right. And the whole idea is to get to that point where we are today, where we value and we have purpose. Because, see, I always say that we see up to the corner and God sees around it.
Right.
Right. So when I'm up to the corner, it's like, man, I don't really see the purpose. I don't understand. Why did I have to go through all this? Why did I do this? Right. And then we get to around the corner and we're like, oh, that's why.
Randy, I love this because nobody talks about this.
Right.
This isn't like a real popular topic, is to talk about reconciling yourself with the past.
Sure.
And some people believe, I want to erase it and forget it ever happened.
Right.
Well,
that's what they do when they're using.
And my sponsor tells me, when you forget to remember, you're doomed to relive. If you forget to remember, you're doomed to relive. I have to look back on things and trust me, the things I did and the places I went and the pain that I caused. I wish I didn't do those things and I regret doing those things, but I cannot live in guilt and shame anymore.
That's right.
It was a necessary path for me to arrive here. I didn't like it, but it was necessary.
It's true.
And people are like, well, how can you? I'm like, okay, listen, any beautiful building you ever see in any city that's going up and it's all silver and glass and beautiful, it's built on a foundation of dirt and rock and mud. It ain't pretty.
Hopefully it is.
Hopefully it is, or else it's not stable.
Hopefully it's not built on sand.
And when you know that you're really moving in recovery direction, when you can look back and say, I'm okay with that. It's okay. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad it happened because it gave me strength and information and knowledge that I never would have had.
Scott, I believe not only am I glad it happened, I believe that it had to happen.
It had
Right?
to.
It had to happen. And it's such an incredible process, in discovery, right? To realize, man, I went through all of these things, and I went through a lot. Like as a child, I went through a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse. I ended up in a hospital at a young age, mental hospital at a young age, 8 years old, right?
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of, and but that doesn't carry anything in me anymore because, first off, you got to realize when you're a child and things happen to you, and that you go through things, like sometimes it's just situations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
but a child will internalize and believe no matter what's going on around them, that all of it is based on who they are.
It's true.
But it's not. But a child doesn't understand that.
And that's part of the discovery process is realizing, this happened to me. It happened through me.
Yes.
It happened for a purpose. And now it's amazing because all of the things that I've experienced in life that I've gone through, I get to stand on that and I get to be an example to people and I get to help other people through their pain and process.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, you said it happened to me and it happened through me.
Yeah.
And everything that happens in our lives, every moment, it's happening to us, not in a bad way, but we're included in it because we're in the world. So it's happening to us, but it's happening through us. But as you gain recovery and as you gain a better sense of self, when it's going through you, you're allowed to put the right filters on it and turn a bad situation into a good situation.
I love that.
You can turn all of this stuff. So everything still happens through you. It's whether you have the ability to take it when it's going through you and turn it into something that's useful in your life.
I think it's perception. It's the way that we perceive something, way that we see it determines what we receive and what we get from it. Right. So it's man, every day it's man, if I wake up and I have to go to the office, what a miserable day that's going to be. I have to go. I have to battle traffic. I have to battle, my thinking. And then, but instead, when I wake up and I'm thank you for this opportunity. I don't have to go do any of this. I get to.
Yeah, exactly.
You see? And it changes everything. It's I drive through that traffic singing the song, and I just ask that somebody be put in front of me today that I could be effective and someone that I can encourage and someone that I can help.
And don't plan that. Certainly you have an arsenal of information that you could share, different things you can do and things you can help. But don't look for a specific, because people will show up in front of you every moment of every day where you have the ability to transform them by simply saying a kind word to a stranger.
It doesn't take much.
It doesn't take much, but it really kind of comes down to what kind of human being do I want to be? Because now, okay, I'm not looking at the addict or an alcoholic anymore. I'm looking at that is always there if I ever choose to turn back to it.
It is.
But it's really about how can I be a better human being and be of service? And I love that. I love the idea that you could think about things and say, thank God I get to get up and go to work, or I have a place to go. I have a purpose.
Yeah.
And more importantly, I got a purpose that I believe in. And I went shopping for Thanksgiving this past year or last year. Yeah. And I was in the store, and I guess I picked the one day when everybody wanted to shop for Thanksgiving. It was 3-4 days before, and people are buying food and they got carts full of food. And all I heard was bitching and moaning and complaining. This is so expensive. That's so expensive. How come they don't have this? And I'm like, you are standing there with a cart overflowing with food. In abundance. And you're going to complain. The fact that you could afford to buy that food.
True.
The fact that you have the ability to do it. The fact that you get to go and share this food with others. Where is the gratitude for that? Maybe what we're talking about is really, it kind of can be all encapsulated in gratitude, not just saying you're grateful, but living gratitude, right?
Living gratitude. I think that's it's easy to speak, and I think that words are powerful.
Yeah.
Right. I definitely believe that we speak life. I believe that there's power in our words. I believe that the way we think and how we speak like determines like ultimately who we are and who we become. And I think that self-talk is important, right?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
I always say that the enemy is the inner me mostly. It's like the voice in my head, maybe from when we were young, maybe we're recalling a voice that's telling us, you're not good enough, right? Or you're not worth it, or they deserve better, or whatever it is in our mind. And I believe that sometimes we're our own worst enemy. It's our mind coming against us. And I believe that it's really important to surround ourselves with people who will lift us up and speak truth to us, right? And earlier when you said, but don't look for it, right? And I get that, and I don't. However, I ask for it, and in a sense,
Yes.
I believe that we find what we're looking for.
I agree with you 1,000%. What I was trying to say is don't plan out, this is how I'm going to help somebody today.
Never.
Because then we can miss so many opportunities while we're looking for that one person.
It's true. And Scott,
that's what I meant. I meant keep your eyes open. Whatever's in front of you is an opportunity. No matter what it is, it's an opportunity to do something good or do something that's not good.
Always. And, the fact that with our eyes open, I love that, right? Because I walked around for a long time with my eyes closed. I was blind. And, my beliefs were just deeply, deeply rooted in like falseness, right? So when we look for it, it's just like, I don't know if you've ever heard, and I love this. I heard it recently, the red car theory. Have you heard about the red car theory?
Is that where once you own a red car, you see more of them?
Similar, right?
Okay.
Right. But if I asked you, Scott, on the way here today, how many red cars did you see? Exactly.
I can't tell you.
You can't tell me, right? But I bet if I told you that every red car that you see, I'm going to give you $100, right? And then when I ask you that question, when we get here, you're going to say, well, Brandon, I saw 14 red cars on the way here, right? One was maybe 15, but it was kind of pink. You know what I mean? But you're going to know exactly because we're intentional, right? We're intentional. And
you're giving me $100 a pop. I'm going to argue that the blue car had some red in it.
A little bit, right?
I'm arguing for every red car.
Right?
No, but I get you. It's where you place your mind.
It's where we place our mind. And
with that having your eyes open and that vision, I think back to the past and it's like I bitch and moan because I crashed that car or because I ended up in the hospital. I had a heart attack. I had all these things. All these things happened. Horrible things happened to me. Not once did I ever think it's a miracle you survived. You did this problem. I could look at it and say, oh my God, it almost killed me. Or I could say, oh my God, I survived.
You've heard what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Right? And when I say that, you're like, yeah, of course I've heard that. We've heard that. But when we really look at that, right? Like, why is that a saying? Why does everyone know it?
Right.
Because it's so deeply rooted in truth. When I look back at everything, and those moments in the valley, like that's where everything grows. That's where you're strengthened. Mm-hmm. You go into the gym and you're tearing, muscle and you're stretching. And in those moments, that's where you grow. Like it doesn't take place on the mountaintop. You know what I mean? The growth takes place. It's the journey up the mountain, and what works like down here at the base, as you're traveling uphill, it doesn't work the same. You know what I mean? As you go up that mountain, because we all want to be on the mountaintop. We all want to arrive, but it's the journey, and I can't take the same things with me up that mountain that I started with in the bottom, because altitude changes, the way you carry yourself changes. So the way I speak in recovery has to change. The way I think has to change. Not everybody could come with me. Not everybody could sit with me where I'm going. Mm-hmm. They're not intended to. Some people are just for along the journey. So I was speaking earlier about, the process and how I had to distance myself from certain people. one of those people that I had to distance myself was my mother.
Mm.
And I don't know how we, got to this topic, but I guess this is something that needs to be heard. And I'm sure if any of you have, that are viewing, struggle with internal like family relationships, have you ever heard hurt people, right?
Yeah.
So no matter how much like I loved, my family, my mother wasn't the most healthy person for me in a certain aspect, and I distanced myself from her because I have my wife and my children, and I needed to really focus on myself, right? Because there was some codependency and some things, in that family dynamic that weren't healthy. And once I recognized that, I distanced myself. Unfortunately, about 2.5 years ago, I got a call and I lost my mom. My mother passed. And, it was difficult, but the way that it happened, even though my mother wasn't in the state with me and I hadn't spoken to her for a long time, I was able to get a phone call prior and speak with her on video.
Oh,
and I got to be there with her actually in the process of like her transitioning home, and for me, it was closure. My wife said, your mom waited for you, and I got to speak my piece with her. And, the enemy in my mind says, because, I am a partner with JC Recovery, and it wasn't always that way. But my mind is telling me, Brandon, you're this person in recovery, this person that goes and is all about helping people. Right. And my mind, the enemy told me, but you couldn't even help your own mother, and I really had to take a look at that and say, what, first off, I'm not that powerful, right?
Right.
I'm not able to save people, right? I'm just an instrument. I'm able to be here, and be used in order to be able to help people. But we can lead the people to water, but we can't make them drink always. You know what I mean?
Or more importantly, can't make them not drink.
Or not drink, right? In that case. But you know what? I have an opportunity to help other people's mothers, right? I get to help people restore their families. My wife and I have a marriage ministry where we come alongside and help, people that are struggling with addiction or mental health, and help them to see, that certain things are worth fighting for. So Hammerhaven Ministries is our ministry. And, that's a miracle in itself. I have an incredible, incredible wife. She's in graduate school for her master's in mental health counseling.
Excellent.
Yeah. I have an incredible, my 16-year-old son is amazing. Just got his first job. He's a great musician. I have an incredible daughter who's just so gifted. My youngest son has a heart for people and for God. And it's like, first off, I want to take the credit for all that, but I give the credit mostly to my wife. It's amazing. In fact, on Wednesday. So is that tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday.
No, tomorrow's Wednesday. So tomorrow's Valentine's Day, and my wife and I are celebrating 10 years of marriage, and that's incredible.
Wow.
I don't know if you remember a few minutes ago when I told you, I'm sure you do, that my mom was married 5 times. So I grew up not knowing what a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage is. And it's incredible because I get to be that change in my family, and we have that opportunity, to really invest in ourselves and in our families and change the course of our families' futures. So that's a passion of mine, is working with families, and I'm just really grateful that, my life ended up exactly where it is, which if you would have told me, 10 years ago, I would have said, this is a mess. But today I get to stand here and say that God takes our mess and turns it into a message.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of personal choice. Listen, when you suffer from addiction or alcoholism, there is, you kind of have two choices. You either going to be the message or you're going to carry the message. Which one are you going to be?
It's true.
Because I've lost people in my life that became my message for me to get better.
Yeah.
Including my wife, who I lost. But, I think it's amazing. If I went to 16-year-old Brandon and said, when you get older, you're going to be helping people with mental health and addiction issues, and and you're not going to be chasing the dollar, you're going to be chasing the souls. What would he have said?
Oh, I would have. At 16, I might have been insulted. And I might have probably puffed my chest up a little bit. I had a lot of false sense of pride and ego when I was young.
Sure.
Which got in the way of a lot of things. But again, all of that was used for good. I would have never imagined, if you would have told me 7 years ago that I would be sitting on the other side and I would be helping lead the leadership team at JC Recovery, and that I would have been used for a source of change for good. I crawled into that place with nothing. I crawled into that place as a patient. And
this was the place you got sober.
This was the place.
Wow.
And not only is it the place I got sober, but it was the last place that I wanted to go. Right. That wasn't the plan.
Oh, you didn't walk through the door like, hey, I'm glad to be here.
No, that wasn't me. I wasn't like, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I had nowhere else to go, and it's incredible because, I crawled in there. I say I crawled in there because I did. I had absolutely nothing. And I crawled in there. I always say when we're down to nothing, God's up to something. And I believe that. So I crawled in there and I ended up coming in as a patient. And 7 years later, I'm an equal partner. I'm an owner of the facility. And to me, that's, well,
there had to be a shift in you, because you were talked earlier at the very beginning. We talked about, and we're going to wrap this up in a minute, but you talked about success and chasing success, and the success you saw was money and all that stuff. Has your actual definition of what success is changed?
100%, Scott. Thank you. I consider myself the richest person. Okay. Now, am I perfect? Do I always think like that? No, I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like I have everything all aligned right. However, I believe, and our motto at JC Recovery Center is that we're a work in progress, right? And we even have the t-shirts, and I'm a work in progress. Every year, every season, something new is revealed to me, something else for me to work on. It's like a pruning process, and then it's like, as we pull those weeds, like something else pops up. It's almost like a whack-a-mole sometimes, but right. It's a refining process, and no, I consider myself, do I want to be, successful as what the world thinks? I mean, in a sense, because the more successful we can be in certain areas, the more people I believe that we can help, Yeah. But money is, that's the furthest thing that I chase today. Being able to see money is just going to amplify who you are anyway. Right. So if you're a good person, money is going to be.
So many people wait for that money to come. So, I'll straighten my shit out once I get all this money.
Right.
No, if it's not straight now, it's not going to be straight then.
Do it now.
Yeah.
Give now. It doesn't matter what you have. It's what your heart is, and I believe that. So, but yeah, no, it's incredible. Like the transformation, the opportunities that have come, the way that I think through the process of recovery, the relationships that I have with people are amazing. We have to be careful when we have gatherings, because we don't want to insult or hurt people by not, because we can't fit everybody that we love in one room, so if you didn't make it to our last gathering, it's because we have another one set up for you guys. Anyway, we're really grateful. If you need help ever, struggling with mental health, addiction, any type of struggles in your life, reach out to us at JC Recovery Center. I can be reached at 667-4585. Our office number, 954-589-2001. There's also a number on the screen. Reach out on our website or come see us in Hollywood, Florida. Ask for Brandon, and anytime I can do anything to be of service, I'll be here.
And we want people to ask questions. We want people. If you're not even sure why you're calling, call anyway.
It's true.
Because if somebody calls you and just needs some answers for a few simple questions, you want that, because this isn't something we can mess around with anymore, folks. If you've got somebody who's struggling, somebody in your life, somebody in your family, or you yourself who is struggling with mental health or addiction issues, make a phone call. Make a phone call. Back there was a time in the old days, back 40, 50, 60 years ago, when 12-step programs, a different thing, says, listen, if you're not convinced, go out and try some controlled drinking or go out and do that. We can't do that anymore. It's not the same world. We've got fentanyl. We've had Flocka. We've got this. We've got that. People, every time you use or you drink, you're taking a risk, and it's not worth that risk. Just reach out and ask for help. And Brandon, before we wrap up, again, I'll remind everybody, jcrecoverycenter.com. And if you want the toll-free number, it's 855-367-9131. Just call and ask questions.
Yeah.
But there's somebody watching right now.
Yeah.
Somebody watching right now that's really on the fence. And you and I know what that feeling is, where I want my life to change, but I don't believe it's ever going to change. But I want it, but I don't. What do you want to say to that person?
What I want to say is, if there's something in you that's leading you and you're feeling that tug on your heart and you're like, I don't want to live this way, but I don't know of another way, right? Make the call. What do you have to lose, right? We always say we can always refund your misery, right? And just making a phone call, we're not asking for any commitment. We're just saying, let's talk, right? Let's talk. Reach out. Let me be there for you. Let's talk about, what it is that you're hurting about. What's your struggle? And because what we can't do alone, we can do together, right? Mm-hmm. If I can't see what's over there, but you have a better view of it, or you've walked down that road before, right? And you could say, Brandon, listen, I wouldn't go that way. There's a lot of construction ahead. There's holes that you can fall into. There's a dark alley around the corner with people over there that, you're best off going this way. Why would I not want you to guide me through that?
Or even if you do, sometimes those holes are still going to come. But if you got somebody with you, when you start to stumble, they can catch you.
They can.
You don't have to fall all the way down.
Right.
You could have those moments. Brandon, I appreciate you being here. I would really love to have you and your wife come back and talk about the ministry.
I would love that.
I think it's important. There's not a lot of that going on, where it really talks about relationships and how to navigate problems like this.
It's really difficult in that area, because you don't have a lot of people. Unfortunately, certain places don't have the ability and the time or the tools to be able to come next to families and help them, because we have parents that are struggling with their children that are using. We have children that are struggling with their parents that are using. We have children that lost their parents to addiction, or depression or anxiety or suicide. This is a real thing that we need to talk about. We have relationships that, marriages that are falling apart. I've worked with people that said, Brandon, I said, we're going to work on your marriage. And they said, my marriage has been dead for 20 years prior to that. Yeah. Right. There's nothing to work out anymore. But a year later, that couple is restored. And now it's been 6 years and I still am close with that family, and their lives have been restored. Their marriage has been restored. And there's so many instances like that. And what that does for the children and what it's going to do for their children. It's really important, guys. Don't give up on yourselves. Don't give up on your loved ones. Codependency is a different thing. We can talk about that next time. But yeah, we're here to help you and support you. I'd love to bring my wife on and talk more.
We'll put it together, because I think it's an important thing worth discussing. And that's what we do here with Sober Life Podcast. We want to talk about all the things that are just maybe that you don't bring them up that often, or maybe it's just, if the more we talk about it, we can avoid stigma, we can avoid all those other things. Open conversation is the first way to start getting help, by simply saying, I'm a mess and I don't know what to do. That's a start. Or saying, I want something different and I'm willing to try something. That's a start. So we just want to keep talking about these things, and we appreciate it. Let me see. We got Brand Nick Hammer saying amazing message. There we go.
That's my wife.
That's your wife?
Yeah.
Oh, all
That's
right.
Nicole. Hi, Nicole.
Hey, Nicole, thanks for joining us. And Nicole, I hope you will join us on the show, and we can talk about what you guys are doing together, and keep getting that education. Keep going with that. That's fantastic. That is fantastic, because you know what? Growth is just the best thing in the world. But Brandon, you are an amazing guy, a good friend.
Thank you.
And certainly we need more people like you out there dedicated to doing things to help people and doing the right thing. Not something you heard when you were in the street. So
I've been called a lot worse.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. So again, please, if you like the show, please share it and subscribe to the channel. I'm sorry, a little hiccup there. I was trying to do two things at once. That doesn't work. If I was chewing gum, I'd just fall over. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Make sure you stick around so you can see other Sober Life podcasts. If there's a topic you'd like us to discuss, please share it in the comments. I will see it, even if it's in the repeat. I go back and look at the comments. If there's a topic you want to discuss, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, just give us a shout. All right. For my friend Brandon, I'm Scott Jones. Thanking you for joining us on Sober Life Podcast. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.